At this very moment, a hellish catastrophe is unfolding in Russia. Blackout in Moscow. Stolipsy is being completely covered. Drones have pressed the button. Military chaos is erupting. The front is boiling with tension in several directions at once. It has happened. Hungary is beginning an offensive against Ukraine. The first strike on Zakarpattia. Romania enters the game. A DPRK bomb is targeting the USA. A nuclear warhead is heading straight for Washington. All this in our episode Hell Point. Moscow has played itself. Thanks to the armed forces of Ukraine, the capitals of the Russian Federation are losing power and heat. The time to pay has come. Blackout mode at full power. Tomorrow, drones will do what Putin feared the most. Something terrifying is coming. The enemy is really feeling the heat. Ukrainian weapons are more charged than ever. They breathe fire and are eager for battle. Our forces have managed something incredible. It's chilling to the bone. You need to hear these exclusive details first. Don't miss out.
Russians, including Muscovites, should prepare for a cold and difficult winter. If Russia doesn't stop its attacks on Ukraine's energy facilities, a blackout awaits Moscow.
There's no need to be overly cautious in our rhetoric with the Russians. If Russia sets a blackout in Ukraine as its goal and pursues this objective every winter, I'm not sure our response, or that of our partners, should be any different. If they threaten a blackout, for example, in the capital of Ukraine, then the Kremlin should know that there will also be a blackout in the capital of Russia.
Ukrainian strikes and our own production of drones and missiles are the best argument in any negotiations with Putin, because the Kremlin only understands the language of force.
If any attempts to attack the Kremlin are indeed made, how exactly will we effectively handle this situation?
Our Commander-in-Chief, the President, has already spoken on this topic. In other words, there's no need to talk about it. Everyone understands this.
For the first time since the war began, on the eve of winter, Ukraine, thanks to its own production and the supply from allies, has achieved parity in long-range capabilities with the occupiers.
Taking into account the climatic features of the Russian Federation and the tactical and technical characteristics of the Ukrainian side's means of destruction. The Russian Federation is facing a harsh winter, both literally and figuratively. First and foremost, this concerns thermal power plants and other production facilities that support the vital functions of major Russian cities.
To strike at regions and cities bordering Ukraine, Kiev has a wide range of Western missiles at its disposal.
Following the recent significant statement by the Ukrainian president regarding his detailed conversation with former President Trump, during which the serious possibility of striking crucial energy facilities within the Russian Federation was explicitly raised as a direct retaliatory measure in response to the ongoing hostile actions perpetrated by the Russian side, a prompt and appropriate response was subsequently received. Therefore, we can say that in this territory, Rostov, Kursk, Belgorod, and Bryansk regions, they remain out of reach of Western strike systems. This is once again confirmed by attacks using the Scalp and Storm Shadow missiles, but only, accordingly, with the modernized version of the S-200 surface-to-air missile system.
The systematic destruction of Russian oil refineries by Ukrainian drones demonstrates that Russian air defense is incapable of protecting critical infrastructure facilities.
In several districts of the Belgorod region, only A100 gasoline and diesel fuel are available at gas stations. Also, subscribers are reporting fuel problems in the Nizhny Novgorod and Samara regions. It would be truly epic if in the 4th year of the war we still can't take out their energy sector, but they manage to destroy ours.
While Ukraine can use Western missiles and its own drones to strike the Russian border regions for Moscow and other remote cities, the real threat comes from Ukrainian drones with a range of up to 3,000 kilometers and a warhead weighing up to 1,000 kilograms.
Usually the warhead of a modern cruise missile is 450, but at most 500 kilograms. As a rule, almost all missiles have a 450 kilogram warhead. What does a 1-ton warhead provide? If it hits a target, for example, an industrial facility, 2 such missiles can completely put it out of operation for at least a year. There will be a crater about 20 meters in diameter.
A mirror response will definitely come, trying once again to cut off electricity and heat for Ukrainians. The Russian leadership is getting people used to experiencing all the delights of blackouts. 1 million Russians.
Right now, the enemy is being taken out in droves. Putin has completely lost his mind, sending soldiers to their literal slaughter, but fierce retribution from the Ukrainian armed forces catches up with them instantly. Near Dobropilya, there's a cauldron by Novopavlivka, a brutal rout. The remnants of the enemy army are fleeing as fast as they can, not afraid of getting caught in the frontline meat grinder. Our defenders are showing the enemy that they are doomed. What trump cards have the Ukrainian armed forces pulled out at this moment? We'll tell you in the report.
They are suffering colossal losses, but still keep pushing forward without any results. The Russian army still hasn't given up hope of grabbing at least a small piece of new Ukrainian territory. Nearly 200 combat clashes were recorded on the front line over the past day. The Russian invaders are most active in the Pokrovsk and Novopavlivka directions. Across the entire front line, the enemy carried out 81 airstrikes, dropping 156 guided aerial bombs on Ukraine. The enemy also conducted 5,118 shellings over the past day and launched more than 6,000 drones at Ukrainians.
Right now, our fighters are working at maximum capacity in Donetsk region, especially the drone operators there. Although it should be acknowledged and noted that the concentration of enemy aviation in Donetsk region is also simply off the charts. There are just 3 to 4 aircraft patrolling around the clock, 24/7.
But while the occupiers were striking peaceful cities and shopping centers, our aviation targeted exclusively military facilities of the Russian army. In particular, the armed forces of Ukraine carried out a high-precision airstrike on the occupiers' positions in Donbass. According to Ukrainian intelligence, enemy infantry was stationed in 2 buildings, and the 3rd Army Corps sent all its personnel to a concert with Kobzon. However, at times on the Pokrovsk direction, our defenders were not hunting Russian infantry, but rather the enemy's heavy equipment. Despite all the dedicated efforts of the entire crew, the enemy tank was ultimately unable to escape from our persistent drones.
The situation was becoming more intense in the Sumy region. Those actions that followed the Russian military in the Sumy region, it cannot be called a buffer zone.
Russian troops carried out 6 attacks near Bushka in the Kupiansk direction. Ukrainian defenders repelled enemy assaults in the areas of the settlements of Petropavlivka, as well as near Pishchane and Bohuslavka. There, and not only there, the enemy has begun to use a new horrific tactic. In order to save resources, Kremlin generals have started sending their soldiers into attacks without armor or proper equipment.
The enemy understands this perfectly well and is betting on the speed of their movement, on lightness, mobility, and so on, because it has been noticed more than once that they run up to the positions of Shubchenko and start searching, looting their own dead, picking up body armor, helmets, and so on.
In this manner, the enemy stormed the positions of the Ukrainian armed forces 15 times in the Lyman direction, trying to break through the defense near the settlements of Kolodiasi and Torsky. But in the Dobropilya direction, the enemy is no longer eager to attack. There, on the contrary, they are trying with all their might to break out of the encirclement.
That's why our units here in the Dobropilya direction have indeed managed to create these encirclements and so-called cauldrons for the occupiers, which are being talked about everywhere. Although, as they say, it's not that simple, and in some locations there are still ongoing efforts to physically push the enemy out. It's still too early to talk about a complete encirclement of the enemy.
Thanks to the coordination and quick actions of our defenders, several hundred Russian occupiers were trapped in an improvised cauldron, according to the General Staff. Even more invaders were eliminated during the latest battles, the military reports.
Wherever the enemy is and wherever he is cut off from supplies. That's over 300 square kilometers plus additional territories. Now, this whole situation is spreading in the direction of Dobropilya. The occupiers' losses within this operation in the Stajwe-Zelensky area amount to nearly 3,000 people, most of whom are irrecoverable. The exchange fund is also being replenished, according to the president. That's what's happening in the north.
Meanwhile, in the east, our border guards continue to terrorize the occupiers. The other day, they managed to set a new daily record by neutralizing as many as 60 Russian soldiers with drones. And here, border guards from the Phoenix unit are already striking at the enemy's logistics in Donetsk region. As a result of the drone raid, our defenders managed to destroy at least 3 motorcycles, a quad bike, a car, and 2 Russian army vans together. Among the high-value targets were a truck loaded with ammunition and a T-80 tank. The Unmanned Systems unit also boasted about their weekend results. The day before, they struck 3 gas distribution stations in the temporarily occupied territory of Luhansk region. As a result, the region began experiencing disruptions.
Water is barely dripping from the tap, the blue fuel in the gas stove isn't so blue anymore, and soon, who knows, the lights might start flickering. Well, what happiness for the eyes and the soul? The gas distribution station in Shastia, Luhansk region, located in the temporarily occupied territory of Ukraine, is the main source of gas for the Luhansk TPP. The Luhansk TPP was forced to switch to operating on coal.
But even behind the border, the occupiers can't hide from the Ukrainian armed forces and their drones. Proof of this is the latest high-profile operation by the Security Service of Ukraine, SBU. Drones of the security service destroyed the Tingovatovo oil pumping station in the Chuvash Republic of the Russian Federation, 1,000 kilometers from Ukraine. It is known that the station's operations have been temporarily suspended until the extent of the damage to the facility is determined. However, judging by the rumors, the company has suspended its operations for a very long time.
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine Today. Join us now.
Shock! Hungary was preparing to strike Ukraine. A drone in the sky over Zakarpattia. It's hard to believe. Could it be that Orban dared and Putin pushed through? Revenge for friendship? The cards are on the table and the EU is seriously tense. The order shut off the valves. What is Budapest trying to achieve? And what response is Kyiv preparing? Don't miss all about this in our report. Coming up...
Espionage in favor of Moscow. A provocation for personal interests or simply the clumsy work of drone operators? Hungary, instead of providing explanations within a few days about what their drones were doing in Ukrainian airspace, chose a different approach. A familiar Kremlin tactic: we are not there.
Admitting this publicly is not in the interests of the Hungarian government.
However, the story of the Hungarian drone in Ukraine is only gaining momentum, accumulating more and more new facts.
One drone has been recorded and there is corresponding movement. I asked to show it to people because they say we're making things up.
In response to this, there was a statement from official Budapest. They claim that Zelensky is seeing things, and that there was no drone at all. In response, our Ministry of Foreign Affairs presented not just accusations, but a confirmed route of the Hungarian UAV, and demanded an explanation of what it was.
For the blind Hungarian officials, the exact route of yesterday's drone incursion into Ukrainian airspace, our armed forces have gathered all the necessary evidence. And we are still waiting for explanations from Hungary. What was this object doing in our airspace?
At the same time, our military and analysts have provided their explanations. According to one version, Hungary could have staged such a provocation as a way to retaliate against Ukraine for the sabotage on the Druzhba pipeline, and not without advice from its partner on the other side of the border.
I suspect that Orban is simply copying Putin's tactics. Just as Vladimir Putin, the Russian president, launches these aggressive drones against various Western countries, this concerning development first happened against Poland, a NATO member. Now we are increasingly seeing unidentified drones flying over some of the northern European countries. Specifically, Denmark, Norway, Sweden, and even in the northern regions of France have officially noticed and reported them. They can't figure out what these drones are or where they're coming from.
Another Russian connection in this story was uncovered by investigative journalists. With just a few hours difference, both a Hungarian media outlet controlled by Orban and the Russian Foreign Ministry spokesperson Maria Zakharova reported on it. They made almost identical statements. They claimed that Ukraine, in response to the drone incursion, would now send its own drones to Europe, specifically to Romania and Poland. However, these drones would actually be Russian, assembled from parts of downed Shaheds in Ukraine. In other words, if something happens in the West involving Russian drones, just know in advance it was Kyiv.
Given the particular way their propaganda is consistently presented, trying to deliberately downplay their own potential threats, I absolutely wouldn't rule out the distinct possibility of a very serious and significant attack. So I just saw a review somewhere about how they operate on social media, and Russian bots are pushing the idea not that they need to defend themselves, but rather that Ukraine should be given less support. And they downplay the danger of these attacks. So this could mean that they're preparing something more serious.
Another theory as to why a Hungarian drone ended up in Ukraine is simply reconnaissance work in favor of Moscow.
Many military experts note that this is how intelligence is gathered, which is then simply passed on or sold to Moscow. Unfortunately, this is possible.
And unfortunately, there is already indirect evidence of this. After all, following a recent similar incident during the next Russian shelling, a strike was carried out specifically on Zakarpattia.
There is confirmed evidence that they had previously violated Ukraine's airspace as well. If it is proven that at that time they directed the strike in Zakarpattia at the American company that was producing coffee machines there, well, then I think Trump's praise for Orban will change, and he will definitely have to answer for it.
Zelensky also noted that such reconnaissance activity along the route of the Hungarian drone is very suspicious. The president refrained from direct accusations, but there was no lack of hints that Kiev understands everything.
It's very important what they are studying. That's very important. What exactly is the Hungarian reconnaissance agent studying on Ukrainian territory? I basically understand, and I believe that they are doing very dangerous things, first and foremost for themselves.
Well, the main culprit of the festivities, Viktor Orban, after the verbal spat between our foreign ministries, also decided to make a statement. Although it would have been better if he had just kept quiet.
Hungary is a member of NATO and the EU. Ukraine would have fallen long ago without the support of NATO and the EU. Mr. Zelensky, with all due respect, stop bothering us.
By the way, I'd like to add that without EU support, Hungary wouldn't have even gotten up on its feet. For years now, the Orban regime has existed solely thanks to EU subsidies. Then the more provocations come from Budapest, the higher the chances that Hungary will be left without this support.
Urgent. Romania has revealed its hand. The secret cardinal has been uncovered. Large-scale drone production is starting. Russia has found itself in a trap and the front is already in turmoil. What's more, Putin's drones are now in the crosshairs. An arsenal fully charged for the complete destruction of the enemy is already at the starting line. And this is just the beginning. What does this mean for the war and is retribution approaching? Don't miss what's next.
Since the start of the full-scale invasion, Romania has provided a significant number of defense aid packages, but officially neither the volume nor the detailed list of the supplied weaponry has been disclosed.
At the beginning of the full-scale war, the key aspect was receiving primarily Soviet weaponry, or let's say weaponry produced by the Russian Federation, which made up the majority of Ukraine's arsenal and didn't require additional time or assistance for training. That's why, yes, Romania lent a helping hand here as well.
As a tactical decision, the Russians would have less information about what weapons Ukrainian soldiers have and in what quantities. But now Romania's position has started to change, and soon all the information may be made public.
Since the beginning of the war, Romania has been regularly and consistently helping Ukraine with equipment and ammunition. Until now, a decision had been made not to disclose this. This is a discussion we will have between the government and the president to determine how we will act in the future. But I think such things should be made public.
Pro-Russian forces in Romania are still strong today, and they will twist and manipulate any information related to the Russian-Ukrainian war, supporting, let's say, the right-wing, ultra-right forces and revanchists in their efforts to influence the establishment of relations with the US.
Romania has likely supplied small arms and ammunition, artillery and armored personnel carriers. There have also been media reports about the supply of MiG-29 aircraft and T-72 tanks.
We are helping with Soviet weapons and ammunition from our stockpiles. We provided a Patriot system. We are providing significant economic and humanitarian assistance. We are training F-16 pilots and Romanian army officers are training Ukrainian soldiers. We help Ukraine every day.
Romania, if you remember, agreed to give us one Patriot system. That's not insignificant either because, look, not many European countries have given us their Patriot systems. Very few have, and Romania also stepped up.
Also, Romania reportedly received a proposal from Ukraine to establish joint production of Neptune missiles, but declined. At the same time, according to the Romanian side, they have agreed with Ukraine on the joint construction of a drone manufacturing plant.
The experience of the Ukrainian front has shown that drones play a fantastic role in defense industry. A downed helicopter causes much greater losses than a downed drone. The idea of a partnership with Ukraine for the production of these drones in Romania has emerged. But until the commercial and legal terms are established, I can't tell you anything.
As for the Neptune project, it's currently on hold. And regarding the drones, it's been postponed until 2026 to accumulate, so to speak. It's quite a large investment sum.
Romanian President Dan previously stated that the country is not ready to send peacekeepers to Ukraine, but is willing to help in other ways as much as it can.
We, like other countries, will not send a contingent to Ukraine after a possible peace or ceasefire, but we will support the logistics and supply of peacekeeping operations at our bases.
When essentially Moscow closed off the area for us, Romania really lent a strong shoulder to Ukraine. And through its ports, like Constanta, for example, a large amount of Ukrainian exports, in fact, went under the NATO umbrella. Romania has proven itself to be a reliable ally, one that perhaps doesn't talk as much as others. But at the same time, it acts.
Similarly, in light of recent incidents involving Russian drones entering their territory, the Romanian authorities are still only considering options for how to shoot them down.
This happens from time to time when drones fly over a small area of Romanian territory. In the past few days, pilots received approval to shoot down a drone, but after analyzing the situation, they decided there could be risks to the population, so they followed the drone until it left Romanian airspace.
So, as you can see, for what purpose are these drones flying into Romania specifically? I don't know, and nobody knows. Last time, for example, a drone flew along the Romanian border for 50 minutes, an hour and 50 minutes, surveying all the critical infrastructure, all the port infrastructure. It gathered data right there, more than any intelligence agency working in Romania could have collected, and there are plenty of those as well. So that's it, yes, and the drone completed its mission. They calmly flew over Romanian territory and gathered all the intelligence.
Ultimately, in Romania, they believe that if Ukrainians saw how much weaponry and aid they had actually provided to Ukraine, the percentage of Ukrainians with a positive attitude toward the country could increase.
A new, unprecedented threat. North Korea has created a mega weapon with a nuclear warhead. The tests are almost complete, the technology is ready, and the balance of power in the world could change. This missile is capable of obliterating the United States instantly. Everyone is holding their breath. Will North Korea really dare to take such a desperate step? And will diplomats have time to intervene? Don't miss what's next.
North Korea is close to developing ballistic missiles capable of striking the United States. According to the South Korean leader, Pyongyang continues to develop intercontinental ballistic missiles that can carry nuclear weapons and reach American cities.
It seems they haven't succeeded yet, but they are in the final stage. Only the so-called re-entry technology remains. This will likely be resolved in the near future as well.
On the one hand, they emphatically claim to possess the full capability, and I will directly quote, to effectively reach. On the other hand, Reuters, citing the esteemed president of South Korea, comprehensively reports that they have indeed reached the absolutely final and conclusive stage of their extensive development process. That is only development, while a year ago South Korean intelligence reported record-breaking tactical and technical characteristics and tests of the Hwasong-18. All this creates an element of distrust towards the statements of South Korean officials.
Last year, North Korea launched the solid-fuel intercontinental ballistic missile Hwasong-19, in which military analysts saw many similarities with Russian counterparts. This launch was condemned by the United States, Japan, Ukraine, Canada, and a number of other countries.
The Kandar missile program essentially originates directly from the extensive Russian missile program. That is to say, all the significant developments of the Kandar missile programs, including the advanced operational tactical systems that are currently being supplied for the critical needs of the Russian Federation's armed forces, such as the formidable Diota-Kande-23 and the powerful intercontinental ballistic missiles, are indeed the remarkable work of highly skilled Russian engineers, which accordingly have already been directly and successfully implemented within the vast military-industrial complex Kandar.
Let us recall last week it became known that Russia had transferred nuclear submarine reactor technologies to North Korea. This exchange has become a cycle. Pyongyang supports Moscow on the battlefield in Ukraine by sending troops and ammunition, and in return receives reactors removed from decommissioned Russian missiles. The new president of South Korea has stated his intention to improve tense relations with Pyongyang, but North Korea has rejected his proposals for dialogue. Lee Jae-myung believes that Donald Trump may be the only person capable of becoming a negotiating partner for the DPRK. In August, the US president personally expressed his desire to meet with Kim Jong-un.
So it's not out of the question, but on the other hand, it should be clearly understood that North Korea is not a subject capable of making decisions. North Korea is in fact being used by the People's Republic of China and the Russian Federation to escalate tensions in the Pacific region, which is being discussed by the United States as a key point in their foreign policy doctrine.
Earlier, the North Korean dictatorship stated that it saw no reason to avoid negotiations with the United States, but only if Washington stops insisting on the country's complete abandonment of nuclear weapons.
Therefore, the rhetoric of the DPRK is an element of military political pressure from the Russian Federation's ally, primarily targeting South Korea, Japan, and accordingly the potential for use and threats against the United States.
North Korea is actively developing its nuclear program and missile technologies, demonstrating military strength in response to international sanctions and political pressure.
That's all from me for now. This was Yadarina Hudkalo. Stay tuned for even more explosive news from the front in our next broadcast. In the meantime, don't forget to subscribe and leave a like. See you next time.